What's up, brother? In this video, I'm going to spend some time teaching you the 6 steps that you can implement in your life today to start building discipline immediately. The commitment that I'm going to make to you is that if you follow these 6 steps exactly how I teach them, discipline will never be a problem for you. You are going to have the ability to move forward towards creating the outcomes in your life that you want to create, reaching your goals, and being successful in whatever it is that you want to do. Now, if you haven't watched it already, I have a previous video where I talk about the 6 steps that you can take to get good at literally anything. If you haven't watched that video already, make sure you take the time to watch that one too, because it's going to greatly affect your ability to apply these steps in this video. So the very first step to building discipline is, first, I have to understand what it is. What is self-discipline? And why is it that so many people struggle with it? And so if I was to go out into the world and ask somebody, hey, what is discipline to you? The answer that they would likely give me would be somewhere along the lines of, discipline is the ability to do things that you know you're supposed to do, even when you don't want to do it, aka doing things that you don't feel like doing. And while that is the commonly accepted definition of discipline, if I was to go to the dictionary and look up the word discipline, it doesn't say anything about that. In fact, there are only 2 definitions of discipline. The first is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. The second is a branch of knowledge, typically one studied in higher education. And so when people struggle to stay on track with reaching their goals and doing the things that they know that they need to do so that they can get there, it's not the fact that they lack discipline. It's the fact that they lack self-control. Most times people know what they're supposed to do. The problem they have has nothing to do with their ability to comply or obey rules or the fact that they lack knowledge. It has more to do with the fact that they seek instant gratification rather than being willing to delay their gratification so that they can have a result that they want for the long term. If I want to lose weight, part of the reason why people struggle with doing that isn't because they don't know they need to eat less and move more. It's because they would rather eat more and move less because it feels good right now. There's really no other way of putting that. Obviously, there's a lot more nuance to that. Maybe knowledge is an issue for some people, but the truth is if you really want to lose weight, the simplest way to do it is eat less and move more. Most people struggle with doing that. If you really want to build self-discipline, the most important thing is to understand what it is. If I'm looking at discipline as simply just complying and using pure willpower to stay on track towards creating a new set of habits, then what I'm doing is setting myself up for failure, fighting a losing battle. Compliance is not a long-term strategy for success. We as human beings need to understand why we're doing what we're doing. We need to have a reason behind our actions. And most of the time, the reason that lies behind our actions is some sort of benefit. And so that leads us into our second step for building self-discipline, which is we need to give ourselves a good enough reason why. Most people, they attempt to make changes in their lifestyle and their habits by simply complying to a set of rules or actions that they think are going to bring them closer to the outcome that they want to create. And the reason why they struggle with creating long-term success is because there's nothing driving them to continue doing those actions that's compelling enough for them. Most of the guys who come into my fitness coaching program who are trying to lose weight or get in shape tell me that they struggle with discipline or they struggle with motivation. And what I hear when they say that is a couple of things. The first thing is they haven't found a good enough reason why. And so when I ask them, why is it that you're trying to make this change? They'll tell me something along the lines of they want to do it for their family or their loved ones, their kid, their wife, etc. Or maybe that they had a health scare and their doctor is telling them that they need to make this lifestyle change. The truth is, at the end of the day, if you don't have a good enough reason for why you're doing what you're doing, why you want to make this change in your life, and that's not something that's driving you to take action every day, you're not going to be able to stay on track with it. I've seen drug addicts literally kill themselves, homeless, without anything, and still using drugs because they haven't had a good enough reason why. You have to come to a point where the pain of where you are is greater than the fear that you have of failure, the fear that you have of judgment, or the pain of making the change that you know you need to make. And for as long as you are comfortable where you are, despite how seemingly terrible it is in every moment, if that discomfort is not greater, you won't be able to make a change. And so what I'll tell you is, very first thing out of the gate, if you're really serious about making a change in your life and you're struggling with self-discipline or self-control, the reason for that is because you haven't found a good enough reason why. You have to want this. And if you don't want it all the way at the deepest part of your core, then it's going to be very difficult for you to stay on track. Now, once you've found that deep, resonating purpose for why you want to make this change, the very next step that you need to take is setting measurable goals. I want to lose this much weight by this time. It needs to have something that I can measure, and there needs to be a deadline on it. This is important. And the reason why this is important is because if I fail to set a deadline on something, then what I will typically do is, like most people do, I'll procrastinate. Oh, I've got plenty of time, right? And if I don't make it something that I can measure, then I'm not going to be able to tell whether I failed or succeeded towards achieving that goal. This is imperative. If your goal is to make a change in your long-term habits, and you want to build self-discipline, you need to have measurable goals that have deadlines. So again, if you're trying to lose weight and get in shape, I want to lose 20 pounds over the next 12 weeks. I want to be able to run 3 miles within 21 minutes by this date. I want to be able to bench press my body weight for 10 reps by this date. Something that's measurable. That goal should align with your broader picture. So if I'm trying to lose weight, I need to make sure that the goal that I have aligns with that outcome. So if my goal is weight loss, then I want to weigh this much by this date. If my goal is fat loss, then I want to have this body fat percentage by this date. The other piece that's important about this is you need to make sure that there isn't a misalignment between what your goal is and what the outcome you're seeking is. If my goal is to lose body fat, I can't use my weight as a way to measure that progress. Why? Because if I'm going into the gym, I could be losing more body fat while building muscle because I'm lifting weights, and therefore the result that I see on the scale is going to be skewed, and it's going to impact my perceived progress towards reaching the goal that I set. This is important. You need to make sure that the goal that you set aligns with the long-term outcome that you're trying to create. Now, once you have that goal, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people have is they make these big, huge, lofty goals. I want to lose 30 pounds by Christmas. Then the way that they go about losing that 30 pounds, or they think that they're going to do it, is by making this huge, drastic change in their lifestyle. They change their eating habits. They throw everything away in the pantry. It's like they try to rip off the Band-Aid and make this drastic lifestyle change. And that lasts for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then suddenly what happens over time is they start making these small compromises. Oh, that's okay. I can have this. I can take a day off. I can slip here and slip there. And ultimately, long term, what happens is they find themselves in a place where they fall completely off the wagon on making that lifestyle change, and they fail at reaching their long-term goal. This is very common, and this is exactly why most diets have such a high failure rate, is because people will comply with the diet for 2 or 3 weeks, they'll see a little bit of results, and then they'll go right back to their old habits and gain all the weight back. This is called yo-yo dieting. It's very common. The way that I like to set myself up so that I can achieve the goals that I have is by creating non-negotiables. And what we do is we build foundational skills over time rather than trying to make this drastic, massive change with the entire kitchen, including the sink. So one of the things that I do with my weight loss clients is the first week, the only thing we have him doing is walking for 30 minutes, drinking 100 ounces of water per day, and making sure that he hits his protein target every day. So we have an activity goal, we have a hydration goal, and we have a food goal. We didn't put him on a diet. We didn't do anything drastic with his lifestyle. He's not expected to jump through hoops and change the time he wakes up and this, that, and the other. All I'm asking him to do is just to walk for 30 minutes, drink his water, and hit his protein target. That's it. Confidence is one of the biggest drivers of whether you're able to stay consistent with your goals. Confidence is one of the intangibles that a lot of people don't think about, because when you have somebody who's failed so many times at trying to make a change in their life, eventually they come to a point where they give up easier and easier and easier because they've already shown themselves that it's okay to quit. They don't believe they can actually do it. And so when we create these very small non-negotiables that are going to help us build towards the goal that we have, what this does is that not only builds a foundation of positive habits, but it's also helping this person create a relationship of trust with themselves. And through that relationship of trust, they're able to develop self-confidence. And the more confident that they are that they can actually fulfill those commitments, the more likely they are to continue to do those in the future. And so if we start with these very small non-negotiables, then what we do is we can build on those. If I want to lose 50 pounds, and my goal is to lose 50 pounds by Christmas, and I can't even walk for 30 minutes every day, how am I going to expect to be able to make it to the gym every day or follow a more strict diet? We have to get the basics down first. Build the baseline habits, build a foundation, and then once you've developed that foundation, then you can move into step 4, which is to measure your progress. One of the things that I learned in business early on, which I'm very thankful for, is you can't progress in what you don't measure. The best way for you to create progress in your life is to be very meticulous about how you measure it. In the case of these 3 non-negotiables, walk for 30 minutes, drink 100 ounces of water, and hit your protein target, in this case we'll say 200 grams, are you actually measuring, physically measuring? Did I walk for 30 minutes? Looking at the clock. Am I weighing my protein? And do I know without a shadow of a doubt that I ate that 200 grams? Am I measuring the water that I consume? And then at the end of the day, do I have a journal or an app or a mechanism for me to log that progress? When I measure the things that I want to change, now I'm shedding light on them. And the truth is what happens is people don't measure things, which means that they're expecting the outcome without doing the work, because they'll start guesstimating, they'll cut themselves slack, they'll say, well, I think I did, or I tried. And so if they're not measuring, it gives them a cop-out. And this happens a lot more than you think. And it's funny because I actually had a situation where a guy was trying to gain weight. And he came to me and he said, hey, Josh, I'm trying to build muscle. I'm trying to gain weight. And I feel like I plateaued. Can you help me? Sure. How much are you eating? Well, I'm eating 5,000 calories a day. Okay, that's a lot of food for you to not be growing. He's 190 pounds. How much protein are you eating? 160 grams of protein. And I'm like, okay, well, 160 grams of protein is only 640 calories. So where is the rest of the calories coming from? So you're not measuring your food. You're not eating 5,000 calories a day. You're saying what you know you should be doing, but the truth is you're not actually tracking that. And therefore, you're telling the story in your mind of what you're doing when in fact it doesn't align with reality. You need to be brutally honest with yourself about your actions. And the only way to do that is to meticulously measure them. And then when we meticulously measure our actions, now what we can do is we can take the next step towards building discipline, which is optimize those actions. If I have my 3 daily non-negotiables, 30-minute walk, 100 grams of protein, and 100 ounces of water, and then I go back and I measure my body fat, or just to make it simple on the scale, and I didn't see any progress, well, now I know, okay, we need to make a change here. We either need to eat less or move more. So what else are you eating as far as your protein is concerned? Then we can start getting into making sure that this person's in a calorie deficit. Maybe we can introduce another layer of calorie tracking. Or maybe that's a little bit too complicated for that person, depending upon where they are in their journey. And maybe it's just a better idea to get them to move a little bit more so that it can put them into a deficit. You see, there's a lot of different pathways that we can take when we have the data to enable ourselves to make decisions. When you don't have that data and you don't know what you're doing and what you're not doing and you're not measuring it, then we're not able to optimize for the result that we're trying to create. This also applies to business. I have business owners who come in and they're like, Josh, I want to make more money in my business. I want to bring in more clients. I want to create more impact. I want to increase my revenue. And I'm like, okay, what's your cost per acquired customer? How many leads per month are you bringing in? How many are you converting? How much are you spending on advertising? What are your numbers? What are the KPIs that you have set for those numbers? And when we start looking at all the things that this person should be measuring within their business, they're not measuring those things, and then they wonder why they're not seeing progress and growth in their revenue targets. If you were to look at all of the things that I care most about, you will see that I meticulously track all of it. The numbers in my business, how much money we brought in, how many clients we did, how many sales calls we did. I use my own mobile app to track my progress in my own fitness journey. I log it all. How many reps, how much weight, how many sets I did on every workout. I know how much I ate. I track all of it. Why? Because those things are important for me to see progress in, and so I meticulously track them. And when I do that, it gives me the ability to optimize with the best picture of data possible so that we can move closer and closer towards our long-term target. Once you've come to a place where you've optimized your actions, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to rapidly move towards this long-term outcome you're trying to create. You're going to start reaching your goals. The final step to self-discipline is understanding that we're not trying to create an outcome here. We're trying to marry ourselves to the process. Most people spend so much of their time focused on the outcome, what they're going to get, that they forget the value, the wisdom, the experience, the knowledge comes through the process that you underwent to get there. If you genuinely went through the process that's necessary to reach the outcome, by the time you get to the outcome, you're already setting a new goal. You're moving the stake. And that's the great thing about this entire step-by-step system I gave you for building self-discipline is you start to understand that by the end of it, you marry yourself to the process of building that over time. And you realize that discipline isn't the outcome, it's the side effect. It's the skill that you develop in the process of improving yourself and trying to bring yourself closer to the long-term outcomes and goals that you're trying to create in your life. Most people, they spend all of their time focused on the outcome and they forget that the value came in the process, and then they miss out on the lesson. Your goal should not be to acquire discipline, because truly your goal should be to build the life that you want to create. Your goal should be to become the man that you want to be. And through the process of becoming that man, you build discipline. And that's a skill that you've gained on the path towards creating success for yourself. So you truly want to learn how to build self-discipline? Instead, stop focusing so much on discipline and first start focusing on understanding exactly what it is that you want to create and why you want to create it. Then from there, you can follow the remaining steps in this process and understand by the end of it, discipline was just the side effect. So I hope this video was valuable for you. My name is Josh Holyfield, and this is the Josh Holyfield Podcast. I've made the commitment to do these videos for you daily. So if you have any questions or comments or insights on things that you feel like I should speak on, do me a favor and drop them in the comments. I do my best to reply to every single one. Stay vigilant.